everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A topic that will make you cringe a bit. Serious. What's the worst thing you've ever did to a person? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Back in high school, my friend bought this dangerously hot sauce. I touched my tongue to a drop of it, and it felt like it burned a hole in my tongue for the next 20 minutes. People were even afraid to smell the stuff. Well, this kid named Alex said that he liked hot stuff. It was chicken tender day at lunch, and Alex dipped half of a chicken nugget into the hot sauce. He instantly turned beet red and began sweating. The dude jumps up and runs towards where the milk are. When he's away, I pour a shit ton of the hot sauce on his barbecue sauce that was on his plate. He comes back a minute later with 3 to 4 milks, still sweating with somewhat labored breathing. He's sucking down milks, but I suggest that he try to mask the heat with the barbecue sauce. I told him that it helped me the most. The dude takes 2 chicken tenders and forms them into a spoon-like shape and scoops a shit ton of the deadly hot barbecue sauce into his mouth. He swallows it, and there's an extremely alarmed look on his face, and he sort of whispers, "That didn't help at all." He ended up going home early that day and said that he was shitting fire for the next couple of days. I purchased liquid ass from Amazon at the start of this year, a bottle of stuff that smells like ass. For months and months, I sprayed it on this kid's locker because this kid bullied me on and off for years. He had to move lockers multiple times and replace a lot of his stationery and books. He also continually smelled like shit at school. I kept on doing it and stopped once we finished school. I never told him. In college, I found out someone in my fraternity pranked me by putting some tuna salad on my head while I was passed out in my room. When I woke up and found out who did it, I got the house manager to give me a master key and got a giant mixing bowl of egg salad to return the favor. After unlocking his door, I opened it to find him on top of his now ex-girlfriend mid-thrust. They both stopped, looked at me, and she screamed. Obviously, the most rational thing to do at this moment was start flinging handfuls of egg salad at both of them and then dumping the remaining 2 gallons worth of their naked bodies. Now, in the fetal position, it might not seem so terrible and just a harsh retaliation, but as it turns out, that guy was not the one who pranked me. At the elementary school I attended, if there was snow on the ground, you always had to be on the lookout for other kids trying to take your feet out from under you. We used a technique where you would run at a person and then slide at their feet as though you were sliding into home plate. It was very effective. When I was in 5th grade, I did this to a kid in my class and executed it perfectly. He flew through the air, almost as though he was in slow motion, and landed directly on his elbow. He was hurt bad. He was crying and went inside for help and ended up going home for the day. I felt like crap for hurting him, and even worse because he didn't rat on me. He said he slipped on some ice. I found out the next day that his arm had been broken in 3 places and that he had to have surgery to fix the damage I caused. TL, DR, tripped a kid in 5th grade, resulting in his arm breaking in 3 places and requiring surgery to fix. I lived in the Arctic for a long time. I had a tent outside of a small town nestled in a fjord of one of the islands there. I would visit town regularly and got to know a lot of the locals, especially the kids, because they were really excited to see a new person, especially one who was white and interested in learning about how they lived. The adults were too, for that matter. It felt like they wanted to know people noticed and respected their way of life. Before I left, there was one little girl who asked for my address back home. I didn't think she'd ever write. She was maybe 10 years old, probably more like 8, but I gave it to her anyway. Sure enough, a few months later, this darling letter shows up asking all sorts of questions that a little kid would ask. How are you? I hope you're good. Did you see any squirrels? Clearly they don't have them, and she thought they were super cute. How's the weather? Is it hot? Etc., etc. That letter arrived at a time when I was moving. I had every intention of writing her back, but it was lost in the move. I lost her address. I have no idea what her name is anymore. No way of finding her in such a remote area. Nothing. I think about that at least once a week, if not more often, and I have done so for over 10 years. I feel like shit. I feel horrible every time it comes to mind because some little kid out there reached out to a new friend and didn't get a response. I'm not a particularly sentimental guy, but that one just kills me. I feel like a jerk. I've searched high and low for that letter, but I cannot find it. Of all the regrets I have in my life, jobs, exes, missed opportunities, bad decisions, that one ranks up there with the worst of them. Such a kind gesture, and it got no reply. It may not mean anything to her now, so long after the fact. Hell, she may not even remember. But thought of a kid running out there and checking the mail on the rare occasions throughout the year when it can actually get to the village, only to find nothing waiting for her. It just breaks my heart. Like I said, I feel awful just thinking about it. Most of these are just some type of juvenile retaliation where we're learning consequence, or you might not fully understand the gravity of the decision to do something like this, but yours was just an accident. I could see how it would eat you up, but you're far from blamed for this one. Sucks for that girl, though. I have a selfish and ungrateful cousin who has everything handed to her. She's constantly complaining about her life and how things never go her way. She's spoiled and entitled. She happened to leave her Facebook account open one day, and I noticed she still talks to her ex-boyfriend about how amazing the sex used to be and how they both have boring sex partners. I copied the entire conversation and sent it to her current boyfriend. Ugh, not cool. A few months ago in English class, I live in Germany, we discussed India as a topic. We should prepare an essay about the caste system or something else, not really the point of the story. One of the worst students wants to present his essay and starts reading. It's obvious that he didn't write it himself because he fails to pronounce most of the words and sentences. I Google his first sentence and find his essay online, and when he stops again because he doesn't know what he wrote, I just continue reading his text from my phone, completely embarrassing him in front of the whole class. Yeah, the teacher wasn't very happy about it. Some found it hilarious, others thought I was being a dick. When I was 15 during a fight with my sister, who was pregnant at age 17 with her first child, I yelled, "I hope your baby's born dead." Oof. I immediately regretted it as the words came out. I was shocked at myself for even saying it. Baby wasn't born dead, but her third child was full term. I still wish I'd never ever said that. I wish I could go back and talk to her. My sister passed away in 2005 from basically an OxyContin overdose. She had fibromyalgia, and we think she just accidentally took too many doses of her meds. I told this kid Ryan in 8th grade I couldn't be his girlfriend because I was dying of diabetes. He believed me and told his mom. His mom called the school, then my dad, and I got in a lot of trouble. He wouldn't even look me in the eye all throughout high school. My friend and I have this dynamic where we're just assholes to each other, but I poured 5,000 airsoft BBs all over his shag carpet. I think we both kind of felt like that was over the line since he couldn't vacuum them up. I am 55 years old. 40 years ago or so, I went to a school disco. There was a girl who used to catch the same bus as me to school. She was a bit of a plain Jane, but I'm sure she was a nice person. She came up to me whilst I was talking to my friends and asked me to dance. I told her to F off. I've often thought about how she must have plucked up the courage to ask me to dance, and then I remember the look of shock on her face when I responded in the way I did. I don't know why I did it, but I felt sorry about that ever since. I had horrible self-esteem in middle school. As soon as someone slightly cooler than my best friend paid attention to me, I made them think I was cool by totally belittling the one person who stood behind me. She never forgave me. It was 20 years ago. There was a little blonde girl back in kindergarten, Heather. I still remember that mini bitch's name. Anyway, she always played tricks on me, pulling my chair out so I'd fall, scribbling all over my princess coloring book with black crayon, putting her gum in my desk. Then she'd put on this facade that she was my BFF and couldn't get enough of me. So I got sick of it after a few months. One day during arts and crafts, I told her I wanted to braid her hair. She bought it. So I put her hair in a ponytail, picked up the safety scissors, and hacked away slowly, making it seem like I was tugging just a braid, saying the whole time, "Ooh, it looks good." When I finished cutting the whole thing off, I put the 7 to 10 inch long chunk of her hair down in front of her and ran away. The screams just didn't stop. Don't F with my princess coloring book, Heather Ann. Especially not before picture day. Not cool. In college, I worked at a coffee shop. This one closing shift, a single mom carries her kid up to the counter with another one in a stroller next to her. She says her kid's hungry and just wants me to microwave some soup she had in a Tupperware container. I figure, sure, I can do a nice thing. So of course, 2 minutes later, the lid comes loose during the handoff, and she's doused in steaming hot soup. No burns, thank God. I helped her clean herself up and offered to buy her any food we had there, which was just some stale pastries at the time of night, but the damage was done and she just wanted to leave. I completely ruined that night for a woman that clearly had been struggling to get by, and her hungry kids went hungry. Still feel awful about that. When I was in 4th grade or so, I was walking home from school with 2 friends of mine when I noticed a bunch of kids playing in some fresh asphalt. They were basically ruining it by leaving their footprints in it. For some reason, I went up to them and told the oldest girl there, "Listen, why are you ruining this? People worked hard on this and it costs money. Stop it." To which she replied, "Shut up, you fat loser," and kept doing it. I wasn't even fat, but everybody there started laughing, including my friends. It was probably my first ever time getting laughed at. So I shoved her, and she fell into another layer of fresh asphalt, which was very, very hot. It was also hot outside, so she was in shorts and a t-shirt. I still have a vivid memory of her standing up and screaming, and you could see smoke coming out of her arms and legs, which were filled with hot asphalt, or whatever that was. It freaked me out, and I saw 2 adults starting to chase me, so I ran like crazy. Never knew what happened to her. I feel really bad about it to this day. The only reason I shoved her was because she was younger than me and a girl, so I knew I had the advantage, as I was a coward as a kid. I would have never done that to a guy my size. My 2 friends stayed behind and claimed they didn't know me, and then visited me later on and assured me the girl was fine and that she was just scared and got some mild burns, but they were also in the 4th grade, so what did they know? During the first week of freshman year at college, my school held a large picnic. I filled my plate and sat at an empty table. Soon afterwards, one of the international students sat down with me and smiled. He was somewhat larger, always wore slacks and a button-down, and carried a briefcase. He looked as out of place as I felt. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a group of the cool kids I had desperately been trying to be friends with sit at another table. I got up and left without saying anything. I still think about the look of shame and rejection I saw on his face. At graduation, I started to walk up to him to apologize, but I still hadn't grown a backbone and wasn't even sure he would remember that brief encounter from 4 years ago. Well, this is something I feel truly awful about, and to this day I still cringe when I think about it, so maybe posting this here will make me feel a little better. Backstory. I'm at a restaurant with some friends and we're on our way out. I honestly forgot where we were going, but I was supposed to be following my friend there because I didn't know how to get there. So we're walking out to our cars, and my friend had parked much closer to the door than me, and like a douche immediately leaves without waiting for me. Now, I'm freaking out because I seriously have no idea where we're going, like not even which turn to take out of the parking lot. And I didn't have a cell phone at the time, so there was no chance of me calling him. I run to my car, get it in gear, and try to get out there as fast as I can, but in my haste, I scrape the entire side of the car parked next to me. Now, this is the truly horrible part. The owner of the car was in it when this happened. I'm so desperate to catch my friend, who's now out of sight, that I make the horrible decision of just speeding off and praying that this guy doesn't have time to write down my license plate number. Yeah. To make it even worse, another friend of mine who was at the restaurant with us and not going to wherever we were after witnessed the whole thing, and he said the guy was livid, like yelling at the top of his lungs, making all kinds of threats, etc. So yeah, that's my dick moment right there. And in case anyone actually reads this, I never got in trouble for it, which in some ways makes me feel even worse. TL, DR, I committed a hit and run while the driver was still in the car. Back when I was in the 5th grade, a bunch of my friends and I were crowded around a chin-up bar on the playground. There were like 15 or 20 of us trying to see who could do the most chin-ups, and we were having a lot of fun. But I was a little guy and felt insecure because I could only do a handful of weak lifts. A kid named Colin jumped up and was swinging from the bar. He was a cool kid, but he could do more chin-ups than me, and I was jealous. In a moment of pure dickery, I decided that pantsing this kid would somehow make me cooler. I told my friends what I was going to do. They thought I was awesome, and I felt a surge of adrenaline. I ran up and grabbed his waistband. He was wearing loose-fitting track pants, and I yanked down as hard as I could. The force of my pull took not only his pants, but his boxers clean off, and on top of that he fell from the bar. I remember looking down and seeing Colin lying in the mulch and dirt under the bar, now completely exposed from the waist down in front of half of our class. He looked so sad and embarrassed, and I immediately felt his pain. Everybody went silent, shocked both by the now half-naked kid and the malice of my actions. We were old enough to know right from wrong, and we were old enough to know that what I did wasn't funny but cruel. Colin sat up and began crying quietly. Oof. Everybody scattered, and Colin was left there by himself until he got up and put on his pants. I regretted pantsing him. It felt so awful, but I'd never been in trouble before. Now I was facing some deep shit. I was a good kid. My parents would have been blown away if they received the call that I did something like that. I would have been grounded into eternity. I ran away as fast as I could and found my friends on the soccer field. At this point, my douche friends were laughing about the situation, but I was scared of getting in trouble, and I felt like a dick for hurting Colin like that. Naturally, our teachers found out about the situation and began rounding up everybody who had been around the chin-up bar. I remember seeing my teacher standing on the side of the soccer field with her arm around Colin. She was asking him who pantsed him, and he didn't get a good look at the person who did it. The other teachers had a handful of other students who had seen the incident and were trying to figure out who pantsed him. One kid pointingly directly at my group of friends and told the teacher that it was one of us. The teacher marched over to us and she was pissed. She started barking at us to fess up quick, but I couldn't force the words to come out of my mouth. I was so scared that I thought that I was going to be sick. I refused to look at the lady yelling at me and stared off at Colin, who was still crying his eyes out. Out of pure douchebaggery, my friends were still laughing at him. The teacher grabbed my friend Alex, suddenly yelling, "Do you think this is funny?" Before I could speak up, she ended up dragging Alex away. I never got into any trouble. To my dismay, Alex took all of the blame. None of my friends ever told on me, and I couldn't force myself to come clean. Alex never spoke to me again, and Colin became very quiet after the incident. To this day, I think about that day at recess. Occasionally, I still lose a little sleep over it. I cried the night after I pantsed him. It was so awful. Sorry, Colin. Sorry, Alex. I was a little douche, and you both deserved to punch me in the face. Was pretty drunk at a party and got into an argument with this girl. She told the host of the party, and he proceeded to kick me out. He was being a complete dickhead and violently dragged me and pushed me out the front door. Angry as hell, I called the cops on the party and told them they were doing drugs. Found out the next day the host got charged with possession of paraphernalia.